from Warrior Concepts, where we take the ancient lessons of the samurai and ninja, bring them forward into the modern world so that we can produce success. Today's lesson, I need to, I have sad news. This episode is dedicated to my friend and longtime student. He's one of our instructors, Shoshi Jonathan Paul, who passed away in the last day or two. I'm still trying to get the details and whatnot. Passed peacefully in his sleep, but we're going to miss him a lot. So, John, this one's for you. Anyway, all right. So we're going to take a look at using reflex actions, right? These things that are hardwired into our system. In other lessons, we've taken a look at how, the kamae are kind of set up so that even if you get a surprise attack, things will kind of happen. We've already taken a look at those. What I want to do is take a look at how we can use the attacker's reflex responses against him, right? And make things easier for ourselves. So there's a couple of different ways I'm going to approach this, but I'm going to get all woo-woo on you for a second. For those of you that have been around for a while and understand not just kanji, but in Sanskrit, there are these little symbols, right? And one of the most common ones that we either hear spoken or see written or whatever is this kanji om. If I can move this for just a second, right? So behind here, right, we've got part of our kamiza and whatnot. And often you'll see these fu dogs, right? We go to Japan, we go to some of the Shinto shrines and whatnot, right? They'll have these dogs on either side of this entryway, right? And in Buddhist temples, they're just a little bit different, right? They're these guardian protectors. They're in human form and whatnot, right? But there are these fu dogs. Now, mine aren't this way. They were gifts. But very often what you'll see is that one dog, the mouth will be wide open, right? This way, right? Like it's roaring, right? And the other one, on the other side of the gateway, the mouth will be closed, right? In this NG kind of sound in English, which is a derivation of Sanskrit, right? But either way, what you have is the birth sound and the death sound, right? So this om kind of thing, right? Across the gateway, it's making this whole thing. I don't know if that's interesting to you or not, but there's a really, really, really interesting aspect about the symbol itself, right? So the symbol, right, looks like this. Okay, Om symbol. Okay, tilt that a little bit just in case there's a glare on it. Can you see that? Okay, it kind of looks like a 3 with a tail, and then there's this little bowl-shaped kind of thing and a dot right there. Okay, it's the Om symbol. Right. So one of the interesting aspects about this symbol is that the entire symbol points to that spot. Okay. And what we're looking at from a transcendental kind of understanding, right? I mean, the earth is spinning and it's going around the sun, and we move around our world and whatnot, and things look like they're fixed against the wall. But, we look at Kuraidori, it's, what's our relative position and whatnot. But the reality is that there's a spot in space and time, right? And I don't know which way the earth is rotating based on where I am right now. But let's say I point at that spot right now. As the seconds tick by, it doesn't do this. That spot will always be there, even though the earth is moving around it. So there's a spot in space and time kind of thing. What the hell does that have to do with today's lesson? We're going to take a look at the difference between just going after things on an attacker's body and recognizing that there are certain things that will always be there. And if you understand it, if you understand this reality, right? Like the elbow is always in a certain position, but this moves, right? Depending on the flexing and all that, right? But within somebody's body, there are certain points that are always there. And if you know how to access them, or you know that that point, right, is the crux of the technique. Okay. I covered something with students last night about a wrist grab kind of thing. And I don't mean like grabbing a forearm so you just have the bag of flesh, but the bones are free to move, right? I mean grabbing in a way that the person can't move their elbow and their shoulder, right? And then so to do that properly, you have to understand there's a spot, right? There's a bone connection in here at the wrist that you're locking up, right? So if I know that, but he doesn't, and I grab that, he's going to have a hard time escaping from me because I can lock him down a certain way, right? If somebody grabs me intentionally or accidentally and grabs that, right? If I try to do what everybody else does to try to get away, I'm just going to feed the thing, because until I unlock this, right, I can't get out. So yeah, I can bust his knuckles and whatnot, make him let go or whatever. But to recognize this and to understand that if I just kind of extend that thumb joint, right, a certain way, it repositions those joints without him changing anything, without me, whatever. It's this simple little unlock kind of thing. It's a crux of the technique, right? To both catch him and to understand that if I'm locked up and I can't get at him this way, right? It's a simple matter of changing that alignment inside and getting out, right? All of our techniques have a crux that makes them work. I don't care if it's the apex or the point where the radial ulna connection comes down here at the elbow, and then the humerus. And so the point of the elbow, right, becomes the crux of a mushadori, right? I want to have my arm right on that joint when I'm applying leverage, because I'm working leverage. I'm working at the best point at these distances, right? If I'm a little high, right, I don't have the same kind of leverage. If I'm a little low, right, he can wiggle his way out, that kind of thing, right? But there's a crux. What I want to do is narrow this down, right? And this has come from years of training with certain teachers and learning anatomy and physiology through the martial arts, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice or whatever, but I want to take a look at the crux of virtually all your techniques. To be on the conservative side, I'm going to say 80% plus of your techniques. If you can do these two things, which are actually connected, right? They happen 1-2, right? If you can do them with whatever technique you're doing, right? You increase your advantage exponentially. Okay. So we'll get to that as we go, right? Want to make sure I stay on my notes and whatnot, right? So again, there's that, right? But that's a skeletal structural kind of thing, right? So we can attack them that way. The other thing that's going on, this point that's always there, right, is the body's reflex action, right, that moves 180 degrees away from danger. Right? Moves 180 degrees. The body is wired to move 180 degrees away from danger. It's a reflex, right? So, it didn't happen the first time we did it as a kid, touching a hot match or a hot pot or something like that, right? But as soon as that burn registers, what happens? Hand comes back to center. That's a flinch or a defensive reflex, right? That kind of thing. Another one would be somebody like spitting or reaching out to stab you in the eye, and you move your head back, right? Or kicking toward the groin and you pull your groin back, kind of thing, right? We understand this in the context of feint or psych out techniques or whatever, right? Because we're trying to get him to be worried about something while we can go to something else. What I want to do is take that to the next level where we actually create those knowing what will be produced as a result of it, and not just this, or he's ducking a punch so I can hit him wherever, okay? And if we can combine these two things, right? If I can combine these two things, then, oh, shit, you've got a cakewalk, right? Okay. And the more skilled this person is, the more determined he is to beat, break, or kill you. You've got to have these things in your favor, right? Because ultimately you can hit somebody and you can cause pain response, you can crack bones, those kind of things, right? But we need to minimize how long this fight's going to take, right? Survival is in conservation of energy, right? I've said this over and over again. Okay. So again, the body pulls 180 degrees away from danger. I don't care if your friend's walking behind you, right, and then shouts in your ear, right? You pull away. You don't turn into him, right? So if we understand that, we can use it on our side, right? But what I'm doing is I'm kind of creating things. What I'm discussing right now is a very, very base level of Kyujutsu Tenkan, right? Disguising truth and falsehood. Get him to think I'm going for his face, but I'm going for his gut, whatever, right? But what I want to do is look at this from the context of doing it so that the thing you do next actually has greater power, more damage potential, that kind of thing, right? Okay. So but there is a little caveat to this, right? The body moves 180 degrees away from danger unless it can't move. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a look at this to create an advantage, and then we're going to look at this, right? So what we're going to end up doing is locking him down, right? So we're going to be taking a look at the spine as a crux, right? But a very specific area in the spine. We'll take a look at a couple of different things, right? But the spine and how that's connected to the way we walk, way we move, that kind of thing. Okay, so really, really important stuff. All right, so let's see. I think I already discussed the head moving away, the torso moving away. I have a bunch of little notes scribbled out here that I threw in here. So let's see. All right, so shift this thing out here. Quick story, right? I don't know how new you are to the channel or whatever you're watching, or the Whiteboard Wednesdays, or me, or whatever, right? But back in September of 2007, okay? So what are we looking at? 15 years ago? Okay? 15 years ago, okay? September of 2007, I was involved in a really, really bad accident, right? The doctors told me that if I didn't practice this stuff, if I didn't have all this stuff going on, stretching and whatnot, right? I would have probably been crippled by the accident. But the MRIs and everything showed that even though I was 45 years old, I had the spine of a 20-something, okay? Cool thing, right? Awesome, okay? But we look at the spine, right? Cervical, thoracic, lumbar, right? That kind of thing, right? Maybe that's a little bit too extended, right? This kind of thing, right? Okay. Again, I'm not drawing out all the vertebrae for you. You can Google it. You'll find these things, right? So cervical, thoracic, right? Lumbar, right? That kind of thing, right? Okay. So there are these normal breaks in things to allow the spine to flex, right? In between, not so much. They can, your spine can twist and all that kind of stuff, right? But there's this spot between the vertebrae of T8, T9, okay? T8, T9, right? There's a disc in between there, right? I know that because at that accident, caused a bulging disc that when it bulges, it doesn't bulge on this side, it bulges on this side and pushes into my spinal cord, which is a beautiful little feeling. I'm being facetious. Anyway, so right here, right? When that flares, it literally feels like, it flares a little bit. I can feel the pain back there. It's uncomfortable. Do some breathing exercises, try to relax, right? That kind of thing. If it really flares, I feel no pain back here, but it feels like there's a steel rod sticking through my chest, right? That's the sensation, okay? Really cool thing. Again, being facetious, right? So anyway, September of 2007, I had a trip to Japan planned for April of 2008. Most people would say I probably shouldn't have gone because I didn't have enough recuperative time and all that. I also had some brain damage that came out of it and all that. Not lasting. I'm back. Relax. Okay. But I was in Japan and I kept having to step back because part of the brain damage was the filter between the outside world and my short-term memory, right, got damaged. I ended up with what they call accident-induced ADD, right, which means that this thing would glitch and then all these things would come flooding into the brain and it couldn't stop it from overwhelming short-term memory. And what would happen was my brain would just go not into Zen mode. It would go into duh. I couldn't process things. Okay. So I'd have to step back, right? Do my thing. If the spine flared up, whatever. So anyway, one of these days of my 2-week journey, I'm in Ishizuka Sensei's dojo. And everybody was training. I stepped back and he asked me about this thing and I told him about the accident and he said, oh, where's the damage? So I pointed it out, right? T8, T9, and his eyes lit up like a kid in a candy store, right? That's wonderful. Wasn't feeling like it was wonderful, but if the teacher says, he says, you're very, very fortunate, right? You will be able to feel things that other people will only be able to theorize about, okay? So may I show you? Extra lesson? Okay, yes, right? So he said, before we even started, he said, this is going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot, but I'm not going to hurt you. Do you understand the difference? Yes, sensei. Okay, cool. Then he proceeded to apply omote gyaku, ura gyaku, musha dori, onikudaki, that kind of stuff, right? to demonstrate to me that the crux, the point of all of those techniques was to lock that spot. And when that spot got locked, like I couldn't move very well, right? He had it because what he was doing was taking this part of the spine and doing that to it. This, right? It's creating this concave action where convex was supposed to be happening, okay? If you're looking at this side, right? If you're looking at that side, flip it, okay? So, and it did hurt. It hurt a lot, but I could feel instantly that he was locking that spot because it was very tender from the injury, right? And that got me to looking at other things, right? Because teachers had taught me certain things that were related to this along the way. And like a good student, I smiled, I nodded, I wrote it in my notes, right? That kind of thing. And I'm going to share one of those things with you here shortly. But it didn't really sink in until I was in that dojo and he turned something that most people would look at as a negative or a limitation or a debilitation or whatever. Just like my one student now has got his arm in a sling because he rolled incorrectly and came down on the top of the shoulder joint instead of on the muscle behind it, right? So he has a little bit of a separation, dislocation, that kind of thing, right? And so I pull the same thing on my students. I'm like, this is great. Now you can practice doing things only on one side should something get injured. I don't care if you got injured in the fight, you're carrying something that's really valuable, you can't drop it, you're guarding somebody and whatever, right? You're forced to use a good side and protect this side, or you have it otherwise engaged or whatever. This is great, right? Don't take time off training because I can't train because I'm not 100%, right? No shit, okay? We're not always going to be 100%. So here's a perfect opportunity to practice doing things and to understand what techniques can be done that way, what techniques have to be modified to be done that way, or what techniques do you just have to look at differently. So, just like gyakute and whatnot, right? So guess what? For the next, 8 to 16 weeks, he's going to be doing all of his gyakute, right? Those kind of things, Takagi Yoshin style, one-handed, okay? As opposed to two-handed, right? So where he is right now, that's a huge acceleration forward, but he's going to very, very quickly understand what he should have been doing two-handed because he's down to one, right? But anyway, so this leads to a lesson that I actually learned before that little incident in Ishizuka Sensei's dojo, that little extra lesson, right? The lesson was that 80% or better of your techniques, right, are designed to lock the spine and immobilize the feet. If the spine gets locked this way, you can't move your legs very well. You can take these little weird baby steps or whatever, but you're not going to be maneuvering very well, okay? That's the point, right? We do that to him. So it doesn't matter what technique I'm doing. If I can strike in a certain way, that creates this. If I can distract in a way that keeps him from doing it. Even if I can keep him doing it from moving his feet for a half second, okay? Way back, I think the first time somebody put this into words, 1998, I think, Taikai in Princeton, New Jersey. Hatsumi Sensei would always demonstrate things, and he would have the person who was the uke, right, explain, right, what would it feel like? How are you doing things, right? And this person, right, said, it feels like he's putting me in a vice and locking me down, right? Now, he's not bear hugging or anything like that. Just what he's doing, it put me in a vice, and now I can't do anything. I can't defend. I can't escape. I can't counter, right? All I can hope is that he doesn't kill me in that second. And that was huge, right? But then I spent another decade before this accident, right? Was that almost a decade, right? Understanding, okay, lesson, lock the spine. Okay, so the big lesson was he's putting me in a vice. Okay, what's that like? Then another teacher was like, all your techniques designed to lock the spine, immobilize the feet. If he can step, you haven't locked the spine. You haven't immobilized the feet. If he can kick, you haven't locked the spine. You haven't immobilized the feet. You have an instant litmus test as to the success or not of your technique and to what degree. Okay, instantly, right? So then I got this, right? And like most students, 98, 99% of students who've never had a back injury, I had to try to understand, okay, so we're not getting him to lean this way, right? We're getting the back. Okay, I get that, right? Okay, so techniques got better, but fine tuning, Sensei's dojo, him applying things, knowing that it's not just about wrapping the arm. It's not just about catching things a certain way. It's not just about twisting a wrist, which is a really bad freaking translation, right? It was about doing things in a way that you change the structure of the spine to the point where when you lock this very critical piece, right, in the middle of the thoracic, there's ways to do it to the lumbar and all that too, but to lock this changed everything all the way to the ground, all the way to the feet. Okay, it's a cool thing, right? Okay, there's other times that you can't lock it this way. You end up locking it like down here and stuff, like if I'm doing a hongyaku or whatever, right? There's up to 5 different locks you can put on a wrist, not exactly at the same time, but within the first like second or two, okay? 3 you can get at one time. And when you do that, right, it changes the form of things, causes the knees to sink. Right? There's all kinds of things, right? There's other ways that you can immobilize the feet by like causing him to drop the hips to a point where the distance between the hip and the ground, I've covered this in a previous Whiteboard Wednesday, where the distance between the hip and the ground is shorter than what he's able to comfortably move through. Because remember, not everybody stretches like we do. Not everybody's learned to move low, right? So if I can do that and make it more difficult for his feet to move in that space that I've given him, that's another way to do it. But what I really want to look at is this idea of locking the spine and immobilizing the feet. And just like with that Ohm symbol, this is always there. That's that point, right? That is that. There's other little tiny things that you can do and whatnot, but this is the big thing. I keep getting warnings on here. I'm hoping that everything is recording right. So anyway, all right. So locking the spine, immobilizing the feet. So let me give you a couple of little examples here. This will probably be a short lesson for everybody, but it's just huge, right? I mean, this is just one of those friggin' huge aha moments that just can't be overstated, right? Or understated, right? So in the Kotoryu Shoden no Maki, okay, there are 4 kata that are connected, right? So the way the scrolls are laid out in different ways, right? So in the Togakure school, you got a couple of examples of primary ideas, right? But they only give you a couple of examples. The idea is, here's a couple of examples of how it works. Now go figure out other ways to make it happen, right? And they're just, kind of laid out in pockets, right? In the Gyoko school, right, in the Jōryaku no Maki, right, all kata in the Jōryaku no Maki point back to the very first one. They point back to koku, okay, playing in space. In the Shoden, in the Kotoryu scrolls, especially in the Shoden no Maki, right, everything points to certain ideas, but you're given multiple kata. Right, so kata collectors miss this because they're only concerned about did I collect all the stamps in the Shoden no Maki scroll, right? Did I collect all the coins that go in the Chuden no Maki, whatever, okay? But there's this pocket, right? So there are 4 kata in this one thing. In our curriculum, we use 3 of them because I don't think that my students need the extra one. It pops up every once in a while, but we don't need it. So what we focus on are the kata. Okay, and kyogi. Okay, kyogi points to a point on your foot that's a target that you're going after, right? That's the crux of the technique, right? Tangen, whatever. Okay, so these really are designed to teach about that flinch response or reflex, and use the idea that the body is pulled 100, or the part that's being attacked moves 180 degrees away from the perceived danger that's coming at it, but how that exposes the next thing. It can also be used to teach controlling his psychology, controlling his awareness of where he thinks the fight is happening. Okay, So if we were boxers, if you and I were boxers, right, the fight is always up here because boxers don't kick. They don't move in to wrestle somebody to the ground or whatever, right? Changes when you move into kickboxing, all that kind of stuff, right? But boxers, it's up here, right? Muay Thai guys, right, they're going to be using the legs. Fights typically down here. Not that they don't punch, not that they don't do all these other things, but some arts stay in certain areas, right? But if I can get him thinking that the fight is in one place and then cause him to go there to defend, then I can attack the thing he had to open up, right? Because he can only cover so much at one time, right? So I can control where he thinks the fight is happening, get him in one place, and then attack something else. So these kata can be used for that purpose as well, okay? But again, kata can be used for all kinds of reasons. We're going to take a look at this at our upcoming Daikomyo Sai, right? All the way, not all, right? A good list of different ways that you can use kata to train different aspects of your skill sets, of the reality of a fight, movement skills, all kinds of things, right? So you shouldn't be bored, right, after you learn one, because if you're bored, that just means that you're doing it the same way all the time, and you've gotten tired of it because you're not getting anything out of it, right? But if you change your perspective, you change everything else, okay? So the idea here with these, right, with Shihaku, with all of these, there are 2 punches that come in, right? It's not about 2. Could be 1, could be 2, could be 5, whatever, but you recognize an opening, right? A lot of people believe that just like with staff work, we were just working on staff work with my seniors, and we were doing bofuti, right? So I've seen people discuss this from the perspective of, well, bofuti is just a way to teach you to turn the stick and keep guard and cover. That's not true. That's one aspect, right? But I've heard other people go, well, see, like it depends on the technique you're working on, because this technique, they start with bofuti, and then you do this other thing, right? But these other kata, they don't start with bofuti. Yes, they do, okay? Just because it's not written doesn't mean you're not supposed to know better, right? Are you always guarding? Yes. Are you always stealing space from it? Yes, right? Then what the hell? You just stand there waiting for something to happen, right? You got a butcher coming at you, right? You got somebody that is at or above your skill level. If he isn't, you don't need 2,000-year-old secrets to defend against you or defend against it, okay? So anyway, so they start off with two punches. So you're using uke nagash, right? Koto style uke nagash, right? So I'm just going to have, right, 2 defenses, right? Uke nagash, right? Throwing 2 punches, you're shifting, that kind of thing, right? Shiaku uses a kick feint and a boshiken to koi, right? This spot down here where the leg plugs into the torso. So then you're going to do boshiken, and Zutsuki, also known as Kikaku-ken, right? Zutsuki, headbutt, okay? But ultimately, you're knocking them off their heels, knock them down, that kind of thing, right? If at all possible, your boshiken should be at a 45-degree angle, because typically in the Koto Ryu, strikes are delivered at a 45-degree angle, give or take, right? Because of what it does to the body and how it makes it move, okay? Tangeki, same start, 2 defenses, right? And then there is a grab feint. And again, this lesson isn't about like exactly how your hands are supposed to be, that kind of stuff, right? But this grab feint, right? Grab feint, kick follow-up, okay? And if that doesn't take him down, you can follow up another punch or whatever, right? Okay. GU. GU means formlessly adaptive, do what fits, right? Kyogi, same thing, 2 defenses, right? And then there is I'm just going to call it a foot stomp, right? Let's see, foot stomp, and then there's this punch to the midsection, right? So I typically have my guys do shikanken. To the midsection, okay? So what do you see, right? What you should see, and this works for both the psychology of where the fight is, but again, I want to look at things from a flinch reflex, right? But if we look at it psychologically, okay, 2 punches are coming in. They're coming in high, right? So where does he think the fight is? Same place I do. It's up here, right? But I now, while he's ducking these things, bring this foot up. Suddenly, the fight's in a different place. So his body pulls that to save itself, and then you Shikan Ken his throat or whatever, right? Okay. Actually, what is this one? Boshiken into the hip. So it's a low distraction, and then a mid and high follow-up. If you can get the Boshiken and the headbutt at the same time, what it does is it takes him from here to locking his spine this way, because two things are getting hit at the same time, right? Tangeki, right? Fights up here. Next thing you know, it's down here. Okay. Kyogi fights up here. Now I'm kicking the foot. I'm actually kicking the foot at the point where the toes plug in to the foot bones. They're all metatarsals, but where the toes plug into the foot itself. That point is called kyogi. Okay. So the kata tells you what to kick, right? You're going to take a foot heel stomp, right? Sokyaku Ken, right? So the heel, just like doing a palm strike, right? Right to that junction, and you're going to snap it, which is going to cause him to destabilize, and then you're going to kick his ass while he's busy crumbling to the ground, right? So it's a foot stomp, and then the Shikan Ken midsection or face or whatever, right? So they're examples of, again, moving him around. You're gonna get him thinking that he's covering one thing, and then you're going to go after something that he had to let go of. You know, he had to uncover to, right? But if we go to the spine, right, what we're looking at is kicking or like moving a certain way, okay? So if I get him to move this way, watch my body, right? It's not just this, where nothing else moves. If I attack this with intent, right, we're actually coming in this way, right? So these are lined up with the eyes, but these create blinders. It's not just any way, because he could move around, right? But if I come in this way, it's going to channel his head back. That locks up the cervical section and starts to affect the thoracic. Okay? Here, it becomes really difficult to move the feet, right? So we've put him in that vice for that half second so I can deliver that kick, right? That's Tangeki. Shiaku, right? I'm coming up underneath, right, at the groin. So he's pulling that up, flattens out that lumbar. So that's the opposite side, right? It affects the thoracic, right? And now he's stuck. But if you play around with angles, what you really get is, and again, this is the flinch reflex, right? This is the reflexive movements that are hardwired, right? This is not only about locking the spine. When I go high and he pulls his face, his body actually moves his gut and his groin closer to you. So if you can work out the timing, you can distract, cause him to move and be punching or attacking that point at the same time. So now you have to do less because you're moving into it while it's moving into you. Okay. So again, think about Shiaku, kick feint, right? When he pulls that up and back to save his groin, his face comes flying forward. Okay. So I want to hit his face. But the Kyutsu Tenkan, right, the disguising truth and falsehood, I want to hit his face, but what I'm going to do is convince him that I'm going after his groin, right? And because my foot is up, simply putting it down and throwing the fist at the exact same time, I don't waste any time. It's not 1, 2, because he has time. There's a gap you created that if he's on, he can move, right? What I want to do is boom and hit it, right? Be right there. Same thing, right? The grab feint kick kind of thing. It's back here, groins forward. It doesn't have to be a kick. It could be a punch, right? It's right there. You need to know whether you have the distance for it, right? Kyogi, okay? What's happening? I just snapped his foot, right? If you've ever stubbed your toe and felt this kind of thing, right? And you're dropping, he's not moving all that well, okay? So I can hit pretty much anything I want because of what I just did. The Kotoryu is known for a lot of this stuff, right? They also have something that's done this time of the year when I'm recording this, right? It's our late fall, mid-fall, moving into winter. I'm thinking winter already because it's already freaking snowed. Anyway, guys coming in, and I shift out of the way and slide my foot laterally, inside edge of my foot where the arch is, laterally to hit the toes of his foot because that was a barefoot and or sandal-based society. So he's in these straw sandals. They're going to elevate his foot above. And if you've ever seen Japanese artwork, it looks weird. Look at the feet, right? Looks like like they had these big, long, gangly toes. They don't. Japanese genetically don't have long toes. That's European, okay? They don't. They have short toes, but the toes overhang. It's not like our flip-flops or our sandals where it runs from heel to just in front of the toes, right? They hang over, right? Like people look like when they're wearing missized kind of things, right? So what we're doing is we're sliding in and nailing the toes, right? It's just this yokoruki, bang, hit it, right? And that either folds the toes this way or folds them up and over the foot. Either way, it does the same thing. Cause them to drop because you just snap those bones, you snap those joints, and now you've got him set up for the finish, okay? So again, they're all about, again, this lesson's not about the psychologically moving him around. If we just look at it from a mechanical standpoint, right, what we're doing is we're getting him to give us, right? I really want my second to third dans focusing on this thing, right? Where, you know, I need to catch him. I need to do something to take him down, whatever. If I can get him to give me that thing that I need, right, either by psychological manipulation and positioning my body so that he'll punch me with that hand because I need to get behind him and put him on his face, right, or whatever, or I do one of these because I want him to give me something. So I stop reaching, right? I want him to have to reach. I don't want to have to reach because if I have to reach, I put too much of me inside the kukan. A whole other lesson on that, right? Put too much of me inside that space where he can reach, right? What I want to do is be out of range or just on that edge where he's only bumping me, but I've got plenty, right? I can do that by causing him to save one thing and give me something else because he can't, unless we're doing like taijutsu footwork where the whole body, this edge of the body, the whole thing is moving at the same time. It's not doing this. See, presents this. It's not doing this, right? Whole thing moves at the same time. Okay. Unless we're moving that way, it's impossible to save one thing without exposing the other. Okay. Or without like losing some part of the foot or whatever and then being stuck because I can't move. Okay. So this is using that reflex, right? Use the flinch in your favor, right? So it on one level, it moves him around the fight, so it gives you an opening, right? That's the psychological part. But structurally, right? If you understand that if you make him save one thing, okay, just like we could be doing this grappling, right? We're set up, everybody's learned how to do ganseki, nage, basic form, and all that kind of stuff, right? But if we're in this push-pull kind of thing, or I'm in this fending thing, right, and I sink and shove on a certain arm or go to grab his sleeve, what's he going to instinctively do? He's going to lock that down or pull that away so I can't get it. But he's giving me the side that I want to slip in and grab, okay? So the trick in the upper levels is not just to take what you get, right? He gives you lemons, you're going to make lemonade, as we say here in the States, right? No. I'm going to make him defend the wrong thing so he gives me the thing that I want. I'm going to help him be an accomplice to his own ass kicking, right? He's going to help me do my techniques, okay? So again, this is that reflex that way, okay? But if we can also get right back to that same idea that 80% or better of your techniques, and this is, you're going to have to explore these, right? You don't need me to demonstrate more. Shit. Most of you just surf around YouTube and find stuff anyway, right? But to understand how it works, right? The two key pieces that go together, right? The crux of all your techniques, from a big hot air balloon over the soccer stadium or whatever, right? Is lock the spine. Oops. Lock the spine. 2, immobilize the feet. If he can't, right, and this is a point of good kamae. This is one of those lessons I got as a white belt, right? In any kamae, in any position, any posture, if you cannot lift a leg to kick or step easily without moving the torso first, your kamae sucks. Your position is bad because you have to do 2 moves, right? You have to do a preparatory move to do the move itself, okay? So that's what I want. I want this guy to be in a position where he can't step or kick. Okay? If I can do that, we're right back to that thing that Hatsumi Sensei described at the 98 Taikai, or the Daikomyo, whatever it was. Taikai. It was Taikai, right? It's like putting him in a vice and locking him down. You can do anything you want at that point, right? Because he can't evade, avoid, counter, escape. He can't. He's stuck. Okay? And that's the gist, right? That's what we're looking at. Okay? So, again, on one side, reflexive action, this kind of thing, right? To do this, that's also reflexive action as well. I just need to understand how I'm maneuvering his body, right? Most people try to do the wrist reversal too soon in most contexts, right? Unless they're doing Gyoko style where they're turning this and shoving the elbow in toward the belt or the center where that locks things this way and takes the arm away, right? They should be moving it out to move the humerus out so the head of the humerus locks in the AC joint and then starts affecting the back. Okay? Same thing with mushadori, musodori, whatever. The arm gets positioned so that the lock has already occurred. The lock in the shoulder locks the spine. The spine lock the feet. At that point, then you're going to crank things because everything that you do, or when he resists, everything that he does translates to shearing this apart or dropping him on the ground. Okay? So anyway, this Friday coming up on our Friday virtual, right there, right? Friday virtual class, we're going to be looking at some ways to do this. We might borrow from these kata, whatever, but there's plenty to use. Everything that we're focusing on is going to be about locking the spine to immobilize the feet and using these reflexes to get him to save one thing. But you already know, and this is what I need for my fourth dans, right? Third to fourth dans, you know where he will be when he gets where he's going. So instead of chasing him, you just meet him there. That's what Hatsumi Sensei does, right? Just meet him there, okay? So, and I've got to stop flexing this way because I'm starting to flare up that bulging disc. Anyway, so one of two ways to do it. Lower level skill is I studied punches and kicks and different fight styles and whatnot. So I know what kind of kick or punch or whatever and how that works. So I avoid in a way that puts me into a good superior position. Okay. But the better he is, might not be easy. Okay. The faster he is, might not be easy. The trickier he is, might not be easy. The environment you're in might not be easy. But, right, if I can go for something, right, and a big part of these feints, right, kick feints, grab feints, all that kind of stuff is, and this is a bonus for you, right? You have to put intention behind that action. You have to believe you're actually going to grab him by the face or kick him in the nuts or whatever, right? Because if you don't, he's not going to pick up on the same kind of intention. Unless this guy's just a nervous, anxious-laden, squirrely little guy who's going to jump at everything. And then, why do you need 2,000-year-old secrets, right? He's hoping he wins, but he's going to jump out of his skin, right? I'm talking about getting the guy that, he's okay with getting hit in the head, all that kind of stuff, torso, whatever. Not really okay with getting kicked in the junk, right? Which is why most sport events, you can't kick somebody in the groin, right? And you can't gouge him in the eye, right? Because he's going to save that. Or you can't punch him in the throat or whatever, right? I want to go after those things that, I don't care how tough he is, he needs to save himself from that thing. But if you don't put sufficient intention behind it, and what I mean is you are actually believing yourself, you're going to nail that. Because if he doesn't move, let's say I'm punching in the throat, right? The punch isn't a feint until he moves to guard it. And then I just surrender that and go with the next thing. If he doesn't move, see how far I went? If he doesn't move, I'm going to tag him in the windpipe, right? Or I'm going to tag him in the eyes, right? Okay, and that's another way too. Here's something, bonus number 2. If you're doing these feints, right? If you're trying to set him up this way, you can gauge whether the guy's in the fight headwise, right? Or he's so focused on his own technique, he's not paying attention to what you're doing, right? Or if he's whacked out of his mind on drugs, alcohol, whatever, because of even if he flinches and it's late, right? You're not going to be able to use those. You're going to need to pop the guy, right? You're going to need to snap something that's going to. So in the context of these 3, and again, there's a fourth one. You can look it up. I think it's called Hida, but I'm not sure. So in the context of these, all of them are going to work well if the guy's in it and trying to save things, right? But if he's not paying attention to these, right? The distraction in this one, he's going to give up a foot. Okay. So I don't need him to feel pain. I don't need him to be worried about his safety or well-being because he's a sociopath or a psychopath. I don't need to worry about that. When I snap that connection, he's going to lose stability. And when he loses it, I've got free shots, right? Okay. So anyway, if you want more, somebody just posted this on one of our Whiteboard Wednesdays a week or 3 ago, right? Any video demonstrations of these things in action? Yeah, Friday, right? This is the big picture thing because I don't know you, right? You're watching this now. I don't know you. I don't know the context. I don't know what techniques you know, how long you've been training, anything like that. So this is all about strategy and tactics, right? Whiteboard Wednesday is all about big picture strategy and tactics. You should be able to take this stuff, not necessarily these techniques. You could be in karate or whatever. You should be able to take the principles and concepts I'm explaining and overlay it over whatever you know and make things better, okay? This format is not for Sensei to be a dancing monkey to entertain people. You want that, go back to binge watching whatever you were binge watching, right? But if you want to see this in context with the way we would do things, that kind of thing, right, in real time, go to this thing right here. If you're watching and you're already in our Ninpo Masterclass program, then you're already getting two virtual classes a week, and you're getting a whole bunch of extra bonuses and all that kind of stuff. You want to check that out. There's some blue links on that page right there, right? If not, you just want to do it a la carte, click on the button, $4.99 later, and I don't want to hear any bitching and complaining about $4.99, right? Try to train with a master teacher for $5, okay? And you get like a 75 to 90-minute class and the recording. So if something happens and you can't make it, right, you're still going to get all the lessons, okay? But if you can make it, we're on Zoom. So I get a chance to watch what you're doing, see your movement, that kind of thing, and help fix things on the fly. So you're not just watching videos and then assuming or hoping or whatever that you're getting it right, okay? Anyway, we're at the, 50-minute mark. I hope this has been a benefit. If you have any questions or comments, keep them nice because I can just make them go away, right? That's the magic of the internet. But if you have any questions, you can always post them down in the comment section on Facebook or on YouTube, right? If you're on YouTube, this is being done live as well, right? I check YouTube first because this stays forever on YouTube. And we try to check the Facebook things. But as soon as this is done, right, it'll re-register as a live thing. We dress it up over the next week or 3 weeks or whatever, so we can help as many people as possible. If you know of anybody that any of these things would benefit, by all means, share it with them, okay? I don't care if they ever train with me or not or whatever. I'll help whoever wants to help. But if you know people that could definitely benefit from lessons at this level, then just, it's all free anyway, right? Just copy the link over on YouTube, send it to them. Who knows? Maybe they'll join us during this thing. Who knows? Maybe you'll be in for Daikomyo-sai coming up 2023, January 6th to the 8th, where we're going to be doing a bunch of this stuff. One of the things is taking a look at kata, not for kata's sake, but to understand how many different ways you can train with kata, the exact same model, but the perspective you have and what you're looking to get out of it can be completely different. The form is the same, but the benefit you're looking for is vastly different from the guy who's just trying to kata collect or just whatever. Okay. All right. That's it. That's what I got. Hopefully I'll see everybody again next time. If not, thanks for joining us. But we're here every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Now the Pacific is a little bit different. So some of the graphics I've got to change because we shifted to Eastern Standard Time. And so now we're not 3 hours different from Pacific. We're now only 2. So hopefully that didn't throw people off too much. But anyway, hopefully I'll see you again next week on Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday.